Everyone, happy Monday. Hope you all had a great weekend. Understanding your menstrual cycle can be essential for optimizing your chances of conception. There are four phases of the menstrual cycle, with the follicular phase being the longest. The follicular phase is right before ovulation, so it is an important time window for couples who are trying to conceive. During this phase, intimacy can almost seem routine, which can add to the stress of couples. Couples should enter the follicular phase together with the education necessary to maximize their chances of conception. This is why we're super excited to be chatting with Jessica Mckasson. Jessica is a menstrual cycle syncing, female energy and hormone balancing coach. So during this live, we're going to talk about cycle syncing, getting your partners involved in the process, and how to optimize follicular phase together. So here you are. Hello, Jessica.
Hello.
Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Tell us a little bit about your background, like how you became menstrual cycle syncing coach.
Yeah, absolutely. So my journey began quite a while ago before I was doing what I'm doing now, which is in hormone balancing and menstrual cycle syncing. I was actually in corporate leadership and project management. And at the time, I was also very deep on my own healing journey, learning to heal my own body, heal my own traumas. And something that I loved about being in leadership was having this opportunity to work with people and help them identify, just places within themselves that they wanted to move through and heal through. And I really wanted to be doing that, though, on a deeper level. So that piqued my interest in coaching, but coaching doing the work that I was really passionate about. So that kind of started my journey and, getting different certifications and trainings, starting my own business. And then, the deeper I went into my own healing and with working with people, I came across womb work. And so energetic womb work is incredibly powerful because as women, we hold so much of our trauma in our wombs. We hold pain, we hold emotion in our wombs, but it's also the seat of our power. It's where our intuition lives. It's where our instinct lives. So when I started learning about the womb, I was like, oh my gosh, I had this powerhouse living inside of me and I had no idea. And then, of course, as I progressed in the journey of womb work and womb healing, that led me to menstrual cycle syncing, of course, because you can't be immersed in the womb and not also be immersed in your period. And so eventually I decided that, this was something that I was so incredibly passionate about and felt that, it's life-changing. And I really wanted to give myself fully over to this. And so I made the decision to walk away from my corporate job. I moved to Guatemala with the intent of doing retreats full time with women. But then, the universe had some other plans in store, and I ended up taking a step back from doing full-time retreats in order to really do more intensive one-on-one work and coaching. And then I moved to Costa Rica, which is where I currently live.
Wow.
And now I get to work with women from all over the place. It's wonderful.
What an adventure. This is amazing.
It has been quite an adventure, yes.
Wow. Wow. This is incredible.
Thank you.
I guess does that kind of reflect to your Instagram handle a bit? Because your handle is Awaken the Wild, which I love this name.
Thank
you. What does that mean to you? How do you feel this ties to, the service that you provide?
Yeah, they're very intrinsically tied. Because, okay, so when I refer to the word wild, I think that it's different than what you would initially think of when you think of the classic definition of the word wild, right? I view the word wild as the place within us that is our true nature, our deepest nature, the place where we're deeply connected and rooted to our intuition and our instincts and our sense of knowing and our wisdom and our power. And I think about when I first started Awaken the Wild, my totem was a jaguar, because I would just envision this jaguar moving through the jungle, and she was so Like she moved and she was guided only on her instincts and her intuition. And so, and when it comes to menstrual cycle syncing too, it's reclaiming this cyclical nature that all of us as women have, And so it's like the wild is embracing our cyclical nature. It's embracing our intuition and saying, like, I'm going to stand in my power and I'm going to do what moves me because I'm guided like by my own knowing. And there's this quote, I have to read it. I brought a note because Clarissa Pinkola Estes, who's the author of Women Who Run with Wolves, which is an incredible book, she has a quote where she says, within every woman, there is a wild and natural creature, a powerful force with instincts, passionate creativity, and ageless knowing. Her name is a wild woman, but she is an endangered species. Wow. And like, I still get chills. Like I get chills every time I read that quote. And like that summarizes it for me. It's like my passion is like, I don't want the wild woman to be an endangered woman. Like I want all of us to be wild women walking around just rooted in our power and our knowing. And so for me, a lot of the decisions along the way, like to leave my life and move to Central America, I feel like a lot of that was possible because of the fact that I was connected to that inner wild woman within me.
I love it. I love it. Now you're helping clients to bring that out.
Yes. It's so fun.
So like working with so many clients, like do you believe people are already in sync, in tune with their menstrual cycle? Or do you think that it takes a little bit of work to get there?
I think that I would say it's becoming more of a known thing. I wish I could say yes, that more people were fully aware, but I think the truth is we have a ways to go. I think a lot of women are just unaware. But the thing is it's not our fault. Like we weren't raised with this information. We weren't taught this in sex ed, like I came across menstrual cycle syncing. I mean, I could like rabbit trail and connect 1,000 dots backwards that led me to this point, Yeah. And so I definitely think there's a lot of opportunity for more awareness because I think most women are maybe starting to hear about it, but they just don't really know the ins and outs of what it is or like what it actually means.
Yeah, I felt like I did not know this until in my 30s.
Yeah.
And I feel this is just like you literally, when girls started having menstrual cycles, they should already know this.
I know. I'm like, why? Why are we not being taught this in school? And, that's kind of part of my mission is like, I want the younger generation of women to grow up with the knowledge that they don't have to suffer because of a lot of the things that are a result of PMS and our menstrual cycles, because there are ways that we can naturally counteract all of those things. And, when we're living in sync and in flow, like life is just, it's juicy. It's so much more enjoyable. We feel better. And I'm like, every woman should know this. And if young girls can grow up with this information, they'll have, I don't want, like you said, your 30s, and it was the same for me. Like, I don't want that for other women.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So what are the 4 phases of the menstrual cycle?
So day 1 of the menstrual cycle starts on the day of your period. So that is your menstruation phase. That typically lasts between 1 to 7 days, depending on, your overall cycle. And of course, that's the phase when you're bleeding. From there, you move into your follicular phase. So this is like the phase of your inner spring. This is when your hormone levels start to awaken and you start to have more energy. And this is leading you up to your ovulation phase, which is kind of like the main event of your whole menstrual cycle. This phase is like pretty short and sweet. It's 3 to 5 days approximately. It's when your hormone levels are peaking. So this is when like your libido and your sex drive is at its highest. Your energy levels are at their highest. Testosterone makes a little sneak appearance. You feel really good. So it's kind of like the peak of the cycle. And then from there, you move into the luteal phase, which is the longest phase of the cycle. And this is the window where PMS falls into. So this phase can last anywhere between 10 to 14 days, just again, depending on like your hormone health and your overall cycle length. And then you circle right back around again.
And what is cycle syncing? Like, why is it so important?
So like the concept of cycle syncing is basically you are just simply syncing your lifestyle up with the phases of your menstrual cycle so that you can take advantage of, feeling your best and like maximizing on all of the benefits of each phase while also being aware of the opportunities of each phase, right? And each one of our phases is dictated by massive hormonal shifts. And those hormonal shifts have a huge impact in our appetite, our metabolism, our energy levels, our sex drive, our sleep, our anxiety, our moods. Like literally every single thing about being a woman is governed by our hormones, for better or for worse. And they're like doing this, during the course of the menstrual cycle. And so when you start to understand the ins and outs of each phase, then you can start optimizing each phase by eating certain foods. So nutrition is a huge part of it. So certain foods help support your hormones. And when your hormones are supported, then you get to feel, you get to experience more of the benefits of each phase because your hormones are able to do their job and do what they're supposed to do. You can sync your workouts with your menstrual cycle. So you're not putting additional stress on your body and you're, again, optimizing, how your body feels, your lifestyle in general. You can sync your work life and your meetings and your social schedule, and you can kind of take it as much as you want. You can sync every aspect of your life and experience all these incredible benefits, or, maybe you just choose one area. But I think the reason why it's so important is, because as women, this is happening to us, like for better or for worse. We don't really have a choice in the matter. And so like we can either make the empowering decision to flow with our cycle and kind of stop. Like, I feel like, for a lot of my life, I was swimming against tide, I was trying to do things. And now looking back, I'm like, that was so out of sync with what my body was naturally needing or wanting that it, oftentimes we can feel like we're banging our head up against a wall. And so, the basic answer is like, why cycle sync? Because you'll feel amazing a much bigger percent of the time. And why not feel amazing?
That is so true. I also think it's like a shift of mindset because for the longest time, I'm like, keep thinking, why am I having a cycle, right? Like, it's so annoying. Rather than thinking, okay, hey, in sync with my cycle so I can actually feel better. Exactly like you said, we can't avoid it, then why not to change this mindset to sync it up and then feel better?
Yes. Oh my gosh. You just reminded me of this quote that I love that says, if you argue with reality, you will lose 100% of the time. And I always remind myself of that when there's a reality of something that like I can't change the reality of something, but I can change my perspective. I can change how I approach it. I can make the reality, I can shift it in ways that make things more enjoyable, and so it's just, we are cyclical. We are going through cycles. And so we can either embrace it and experience the benefits, or we can, ignore it or fight against it, which then leads to, could be very severe menstrual health issues, hormone imbalance, all sorts of things that just don't feel very good.
That makes so much sense. So not only you should have your lifestyle, everything you do sync with your cycle, you should also get your partner involved. So what are the benefits of getting your partner involved in this process?
First of all, it's a game changer. It truly is a game changer because, as women, we're going through this process every month, right? And I think that if we have an understanding of what's happening in our bodies and why we're feeling certain ways, why one day we go from having tons of energy and we feel like we're superwoman to the next day feeling like nobody could even peel me off the couch if they like, you can't get me off this couch if you tried, And so the benefits of involving your partner are, one, you can have more realistic expectations in your relationship. So if your partner knows what to expect of you and they know, okay, hey, during this phase of your cycle, they know, my partner knows my energy levels are going to be lower. I'm not going to want to do this, I'm not going to want to go out and be super social during my luteal phase. I'm going to want to stay in and be cozy. I'm also not going to want to take on like big projects or book a big meal, my energy level shifts so much. And so when he knows this, like he can flow with that too. I think that it greatly enhances communication. I think as women, it's very difficult for us oftentimes to ask for our needs to be met. Mm-hmm. It's difficult for us to say that we need help. There is so much societal conditioning that has made us feel like we have to be superwoman all the time, or there's something wrong with us. So oftentimes we're pushing ourselves, we're pushing our bodies to do things that aren't actually good for us because of, a lot of these like stigmas and conditioning. And so I think that if you're someone that struggles to ask for help or struggling, to ask to have your needs be met, cycle syncing is like it's like a fallback, right? It's science. Like there's data backed behind it that says like this is what your hormones are doing, and as a result, this is likely how you're going to feel. Mm-hmm. And so it can really help with being able to just express yourself. It opens up for more vulnerability and openness in your relationship. From an intimacy perspective, which I'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute when we talk more about like the specifics to the follicular phase. Our bodies are changing so much because of our hormones, and the way we experience sex changes a lot as a result of that too. Mm-hmm. And so adjusting expectations around intimacy and what that looks like in your relationship, and how maybe during one phase of your cycle, you're all about one thing, but then as you start to change, all of a sudden your needs, sexually shift as well. And I think that it helps with being able to communicate more openly in that department as well, and just have more realistic expectations there in general. In empathy, I feel like once I started schooling him on everything and was like, look, this is what's happening, and started real time involving him, he was like, this is insane. I can't believe that this is what you go through all the time. Like, this is mind blowing. So I think it helps develop this, a sense of like awe and respect for the female body, because it is magical and it is going through a lot. But two, there's this like deeper empathy level, Oh, and the last thing is, I think it helps with roles and like shared responsibilities. Especially let's say, you're a mom and you have kids, and if you can involve your partner in your cycle, and let's say in the first 2 days when you're bleeding, your partner knows that these are days where you really need some downtime, and you need your partner to step up and pick up the slack, and maybe, pick the kids up or make the lunches, or just take on some extra things to help carry some of that weight that I think as women, we oftentimes just naturally will take it all on. It can really help with evening out some of those just shared roles and responsibilities too.
Makes so much sense. So talking about menstruation can seems to be taboo for some relationships. So what advice would you give it to someone who wants to discuss their menstrual cycle with their partners, but then think their partner will be, unreceptive?
So yes, it's definitely something that's still very taboo. And I think we have a lot of work to do in breaking down the stigma, and the way that we untaboo something and the way that we destigmatize is by talking about it, So I think, part of this depends on if your partner is a man or a woman, because if your partner is a woman, you're probably going to have a much easier time. Yeah. Maybe she's never heard of it before and you're telling her, she's probably going to be like, hopefully sign me up, but too, because she knows she's experienced it in her body. So, for the sake of this question, I'll shift it over to the male focus, because they're probably not as understanding or just don't have as much knowledge or information. But I think, when you look at like the main, like a very strong trait of the masculine energy, it's logic. Like men are very logical, they want facts, they want evidence. And so when it comes to menstrual cycle syncing and hormone balancing, it is legitimately all science. I could put together an entire scientific PowerPoint presentation of what's happening, So I think if you're going to talk to your partner about it, for like the first time, having as armed with as much information as you can be about what's actually going on in your own body, and having an understanding is really helpful, because it's like, we can't argue with some of these things, The other thing too is, well, hopefully, all of us would if, if we knew that our partner was suffering, from something and we could do something to help them or fix it, hopefully everyone would, sign immediately, say like, okay, I'll do whatever I can. Like, I want you to feel better. But when I think back to like my corporate leadership days, anytime I wanted someone's buy-in to do something, I would always come with the approach of what's in it for them. Because people inherently want to know, like, how is this going to benefit me? What's the win for me, And so talking about it too, in terms of, hey, if I do these things, if I start making these lifestyle shifts, if I start shifting our nutrition, if I start, changing the way I approach our social calendar, or, whatever it may be, this is ultimately going to lead to me feeling better and having more energy and having a higher sex drive, which that's, ladies, lead with the sex drive. Cycle syncing like massively increases your libido. So like you can lead with that. And, just also, there's like this stigma around like PMS, right? It's like none of us want to hear our partners say like, oh, it must be that time of the month again.
Yeah.
And they do that. And it's true, right? And so it's like, but it doesn't have to be, because if we're menstrual cycle syncing and hormone balancing, we can actually massively reduce our PMS symptoms and our period pain so that they can actually be almost non-existent. So it's like, if you were to approach your partner and say, hey, would you appreciate it if I no longer had PMS? Like, chances are that the resounding answer is going to be yes, Yeah. And so, and two, it's like the menstrual cycle is the whole. It's like the whole 33 days or 28 to 33 days, So I think there's this, a very common myth that a lot of people have is the menstrual cycle, like the main event is your period. But the menstrual cycle is the whole shebang, not just the period. And so I think that's helpful for helping, men understand that it's not just this one week. There's so much else that's happening these other weeks that lead up to that week that determine how that week goes.
It's really should be win-win.
Yes, it is. It 100% is a win-win. Everybody's happier.
Now, going back to the follicular phase, what's going on inside the body and hormone-wise and when we're in the space?
So you're coming out of your period. So during your period, your hormone levels are at their absolute lowest, specifically estrogen. So estrogen is the hormone that gives us energy. It's what makes us feel vivacious. It helps us think clearly. It gives us our sex drive. It stabilizes our moods. So when estrogen levels are really low, that's what leads to us wanting to go more inwards and retreat and not have as much energy. Maybe we don't, our libido is lower. We're not feeling like, we want to like Marvin Gaye and get it on. We're like, no. I'd rather just like snuggle and eat chocolate. So when you come out of your menstrual phase, the biggest transition is your estrogen levels start to rise, and they continue to rise up until you get to ovulation, where your estrogen levels peak. So basically, in the beginning of the follicular phase, it's like you're coming out of hibernation. Like if you think of menstruation is your inner winter, follicular is your inner spring. So it's like you're slowly starting to like crawl out of your cave. You're looking at the world, like everything seems a little bright and shiny. You're like start to feel like you have energy again. You want to do things, maybe you feel like that excitement for life again that during, the past 2 weeks, you're like, I don't care. Just sign me off. I'm done. So the big event is that estrogen levels are rising, which causes everything to kind of waken back up again.
So what are some ways to maximize the follicular phase with your partner?
So one of the biggest ways, and I think one of the biggest things to talk about, is when it comes to sexual intimacy, actually, because so when our estrogen levels are really low, we are not lubricated at all. So our vaginas are much, much drier. As our estrogen levels start to rise, that is what increases lubrication. So I think when it comes to, and we know lubrication plays a big role as to how much we enjoy sex or not, right? And so, a really big thing is talking to our partners and saying, hey, just because this isn't happening in my body, this like key signal that I think has been stigmatized is like, oh, if you're not lubricated, you're not turned on, or there's something wrong. I used to feel a lot of shame around that, not understanding, well, like, why is my body not doing what I think it's supposed to be doing in this very intimate situation, and it's like it was embarrassing. So I think like really understanding that our hormones play a huge role in the intimacy we want to have. So like when you first move into your follicular phase, you have two really dry phases in your whole cycle. And the beginning of your follicular phase is one of them. The other one is the end of your luteal phase. So having this understanding, I think, is key, because then you can really shift your approach to intimacy. So maybe, you need more foreplay, maybe you want to use a lubricant, but you can be aware of doing things that feel really good instead of, trying to pretend it's not happening, or, or just avoiding it altogether. And so that even ties back to kind of more that open, vulnerable conversations that menstrual cycle syncing opens up with our partners, because it is vulnerable. It is hard to talk about some of these things that are happening in our bodies sometimes. But the benefits too of the follicular phase is our brain is actually geared to really embrace and want new experiences. So the follicular phase is like all about newness, it's like spring and flowers blooming. And so it's really fun to, include your partner in this phase with just doing new things, like trying novel things, plan something you haven't done before, take a cooking class, go on a new hike, go to a new restaurant. It's an amazing time for weekend getaways because your energy levels are increasing. So you want to go out and be exploring, versus if you try and plan a weekend trip or a vacation when you're in the second half of your cycle, it's tough. It's tough because you just don't feel like you have the energy. So just like really capitalizing on like fun, doing things like in your relationship to bring out the inner child in both of you into play, because that's also a big energy for the follicular season. So it's just like keeping it light, and remembering to do things that like excite both of you. And life can get very, monotonous and routine. And so the follicular season is like an excellent time to just invite in more play, have more fun, and as the follicular season progresses, as the closer you get to ovulation, the more you switch over into like full blown baby making mode. And so it's a really fun time if you want to experiment in the bedroom or try new things. It's all about just exploring and being creative and, doing things that feel really fun and good together.
You pretty much answered my next question, because I was going to ask you that I love you advising couples to break out of their routine during this phase. And I was going to ask her, what would be a spontaneous date you would suggest to a partner? All the fun stuff you mentioned, I guess.
All those things, totally. I think doing like buy last minute concert tickets is always really fun, or like last minute tickets to a show or something. I also think a really fun thing to do is to like switch back and forth. So maybe 1 month it's like your partner's turn to like plan the spontaneous date, and the next month it's your turn. So there's like this back and forth and there isn't this guesswork of like, well, are you going to do it or am I going to do it? Like, who's going to do it? It's like, that there's something fun that's coming. And so, or even, going back to the intimacy thing, like having a spontaneous, like sexy time date night where you take it up a notch, you put on the sexy music, you light the candles, you take a bath together or shower together, you engage in more foreplay, you go into building a container of intimacy that's not your normal everyday form of intimacy, like really can help just keep that spark alive. I always am a big fan of weeknight spontaneous things too, because, the work week is happening and typically you already kind of, if you're going to plan something fun, it's usually on the weekend. So doing it during the middle of the week is a great time because it really is spontaneous and like just totally breaks everything up.
That's such a great tip. I can see when women will their partners started this process, they probably need like a lot of guidance so they're not exactly in the dark. How can someone work with you? Like what does a session look like?
So, the sessions vary, like it's so dependent woman to woman because it really depends on where a woman is at in with her hormones. So for example, if you are someone that's really struggling with hormone balancing, that's obviously going to make your whole menstrual cycle a bit difficult, and you're not able to really capitalize on the benefits because of the hormonal imbalance. So if you are someone that struggles with hormone balancing issues, like that's where we would start, is really tackling, what's going on at a hormonal level, looking at, where the imbalance is, and then making, having a plan formulated for her so that she can make very specific, tailored adjustments to bring the hormones back into balance. And then I do a lot of energetic work with women as well, a lot of womb work and womb healing. I love to incorporate somatic practices, breath work. I do EFT, like emotional freedom technique, sound healing, energy work, because as much as, we are physical and spiritual beings. We're energetic and physical. So I believe we have to come at it from like a kind of this approach, because there's so many things on the physical level that will help us feel amazing, like having proper nutrition and movement and whatnot. But from an energetic level, if we're carrying trauma, or we have wounds, or we have limiting beliefs about our abilities to heal or to manifest or to have the life that we want, those things, it's all related, they go hand in hand. And so I kind of work intuitively based on what is coming up as we're doing sessions too. And like, maybe we need to shift focus and focus on one thing energetically, but, stay the course on the things we're doing in the physical.
Amazing. Tell us about your online community, the Sync Up Sisterhood.
Okay, so this is something that I am so excited about, and it's actually, I just launched this, so it's brand new. This is the first time I'm talking about it, I think, like actually talking about it on an online platform.
Oh my God, we're on.
I'm so excited about it. So I have been wanting to, well, let me back up. I have found that some of my most profound healing experiences and some of the most incredible love and support that I have felt in my life has happened in spaces with other women, where I have felt really held and really safe and able to open up about, whether it was things I was carrying shame about or needed to work through, or there's just so much healing that can happen when we're in supportive spaces. And that was why I really wanted to do retreats, because I just believe in these spaces so much. But that's, even that, a retreat, it's a one-time thing, or it's, and so I really have been dreaming about creating a community for women, with women, where it is a space to come and it's complete openness. It's a place of just support, non-judgment, where we can talk about things we're experiencing and just like create a container of just like love and like, hey, sisters, we're here in this, like, we've got this together, and so, what'll be happening on a monthly basis is I'll be hosting multiple different live events throughout the course of the month. So that'll vary from anything from full moon ceremonies, new moon ceremonies, guided yoni steams, shamanic journeys, energy work, tapping, breath work, all the different fun things. And then there'll be live events like similar to this, where I can collaborate with other women and bring experts in on different subjects to talk about and teach. And I'm hoping to have online courses and resources that are, specific just for members, and, community chat and just all the things that bring us together and connect us in a really loving space.
That is amazing. Now, talking about retreats, do you have anything coming up?
So I do actually have an in-person coming up in San Diego. So we haven't even posted about this yet, because it's been like very, very fresh in the works. But it's soon. It's on September 9th and 10th in like the Encinitas area of San Diego. And it's called The Selfish Sanctuary. Oh my gosh. I think The Selfish Sanctuary, like tapping into your feminine power. Like this is all like very new and like hot off the presses. But basically my friend Dara, a wonderful soul sister of mine, she has a place called the Detox Cottage. and she runs retreats there full time. So she has everything from like saunas and ice baths and facials and gua sha. And so we're doing a 2-day event where the first day is going to be more of an education day where I'm going to be teaching in depth about menstrual cycle syncing and hormone health. Dara is going to be teaching a lot about our lymphatic system and some other gut health issues as well. And then we have someone who's going to be coming in and teaching yoga, and we're going to have yummy foods. And so the first day is going to be kind of more educational. And then the second day is going to be more of like a treat yourself. We're going to have like a cacao ceremony. We'll have all the different like spa things happening and just time to like connect. So that will be going live. Hopefully I will be posting about that very soon and have more details on my website. So if you're watching this and you're interested in that, stay tuned for more details on that because it's going to be so fun.
That's actually my next question. How do people sign up?
Good question.
For that.
Soon. Yes, it'll be on my website very soon because it's coming up very soon.
So if people want to work with you or join your online community or join the retreat, they would just go to your website to sign up.
Yes. I have a couple of spaces open for one-on-one work at the moment. I also have, some free online resources. I have an ebook that's a beginner's guide to menstrual cycle syncing. I think it's like $8. So I have some things that'll, if you're, curious about menstrual cycle syncing and you're not really sure where to start and you just want to get a basic understanding, there's some free resources there. I have grocery shopping lists. So if you want to know like what foods to buy during each phase to support your hormones, right, those are available. But yes, it's all the info's on my website.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I know we're a little bit over, but this is super, super interesting.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so great.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.